Today was hard as fuck. I had one winner, one losing trade, and in this video, I'll go over exactly the market session, my buys, and how I got the result in which I did. So a pretty difficult session in terms of P&L, not down a whole bunch, not up a whole bunch. It's kind of in between. And here is the look. Here are the two trades. I ended up skipping the AM part of the session today, just going based off yesterday's AM and how bad it was. Wanted to preserve a bit and move on to the PM session. But another inside day in these markets, the past couple weeks have been tough because the markets have been consistently underperforming through New York session. I said this earlier on my live stream, but it feels like overnight price in New York kind of shifted here a bit the past couple weeks. We've been seeing overnight price end up seeing the moves in the market as opposed to New York being the inside part or the consolidative part of the three. Bit tough, but that's how price is. I'm going to try to maybe trade overnight price a bit more starting tonight. Maybe, if, obviously if price is better, but it's been tough overall, right? But not once did I bite into my emotions. Not once did I not follow my system. Still here following my system. These are just simply market conditions for what they are. And looking at price today, just a tough one. So what was my bias? Well, coming into the open, it was pretty simple. Coming into the PM session, it was pretty simple. If you pull up my kind of bias coming into it, I said watching the 1 minute right now, NQ essentially filled and bounced off its hourly gap. The reaction in this retrace after the bullish move is key. Will provide clarity on what price truly wants to do. Invert equals bearish to fulfill hourly gaps. Rebalance equals bullish back into New York range. Well, if you look at the bias, we've been partially right, but for the most part, nothing happened. We've been consolidating. We've been seeing price essentially do nothing for the entirety of the session, but that was kind of my thesis. So watching this 1 minute gap, the importance in this gap right here, which I combined 2 1 minute gaps in together, was the hourly time frame. Now, if we quickly look into the hourly time frame, what did we do here that caused me to have interest? Well, you look at the hourly time frame, we filled an hourly gap. Likewise with NQ. NQ had filled an hourly gap for the most part. And so for me, off this initial wick on the hourly time frame, which was also this 5 minute time frame move here, what I wanted to see how price would react off a retracement. So we had an imbalance, came back down here, and we ended up seeing price tap into this imbalance. And the reaction essentially is what would give me idea behind what price wanted to do. Well, if you look at price here, we initially bounce, yes. We end up seeing price come back up, take this internal high, but then we come right back down. And the first trade I ended up taking was through ES because of the fact that ES had seen a bit of a flip with NQ. My stop loss was based this swing high. And essentially, the entry model off this trade was a 1 minute gap go invert. Well, reason being, if we see a displacement 5 minute candle off the hourly gap in which was filled on NQ and ES, if we see price come right down and bite right back down, this more so looks like a retracement to me than anything else. Let me show you a quick reference. So say we have a low, say we have a high, right? And say price comes up here and takes that high out, and then say we end up seeing price come down here and take out, say, a low or fill the low, for example. If we come back up and we see price showcase initial bullish displace, which is what we did here, but then we see price come right back down and we see price eat up that 5 minute move here, just like how we did here. My belief is that price will look to see continuation here, right? Meaning more extension towards the downside where we fulfill the hourly gap below. That's all I was looking at today, right? So in reversal periods, you want to see price displace consistently in the same speed, if not more aggressively, as it came down here. So we see a downtrend, you see a low get taken. We don't see a perfect low here. But then you see price come up here and initially showcase initial displacement, kind of like this, but just a bit more aggressive. Again, we come down here, we see this 5 minute time frame, this 5 minute gap here get eaten up, and we see price come right back down. Then we see price essentially invert. This was a good trade in my eyes. Reason being, we don't put in a major low, nor do we see consistency in the displace back up. So the two main key factors I identify when it comes to reversals were wiped. What ends up happening here? Consolidation. That's it. So in these conditions, we take this entry, we have stopped the swing high, and we end up seeing prices essentially consolidate for quite a bit before coming back up here and taking stop out. Now, for me, I still was not bullish here because price wasn't indicating that it wanted to see true reversal. It just seems as if price was trading up and down. That's it. Now, if you look at our second trade was off a similar concept, same targets, same break-even area. And what the difference with this trade, all we did differently was simply adjust stop. You see the stop size on this trade was a lot bigger than this trade was right here because we had recognized at this point, okay, price is consolidating. What should we do now? We either are risk off or we adjust stops and have wider stops. Does that, diminish R a bit more? Yes, but that's the only way I feel you could trade current price with how we typically look at price. And we end up seeing price essentially consolidate for the majority of the session. This is tough because if you go back to yesterday, we kind of have a similar thing happen. Yesterday was a unique day because we had so many trades that we took instantly in the money, hit our break-even zone, and then come right back out into entry. Very tough. In these current conditions, you're seeing very little follow-through. This consolidation right here is the type of consolidation you see typically during Asia sessions historically, and you just simply void. Being New York primary session traders, it's hard to avoid it when you're on live stream consistently. So a kind of an adjustment that I want to try until New York gets back to being the primary session in which delivers, which it does 90% of the time. We're just in that 10%. I will be looking for price and to trade on price overnight, if that makes sense. So starting today, moving forward, we're going to be a bit more active, a bit more flexible. We're going to be looking at Asia through London and New York potentially. That's how we'll have to adapt because it's not like price is terrible overall 24/7. It's we're seeing the moves happen in sessions that we are not trading. Again, historically, you'll see New York tend to usually print and make the large moves, which is why I'm a New York primary session trader, right? Historically, through my years of trading. What we've been seeing price do now is we've been seeing price trade and make the moves overnight as opposed to New York. I mean, look at it, right? Look at London. I look at the majority of its move through London, right, all the way from the low to the high. We essentially end up seeing a 90-point move on ES, but then if you take the same duration, which would be around from 250 all the way until 9, so about a six-hour window, you take that duration from New York from 10:30 all the way until 4, we end up seeing price at max make a 34-point move. So when you're seeing New York session trade 1/3 of what overnight price does, what does that tell you? You either preserve or you put risk on knowing conditions. That's the entirety of the truth, right? That's just how price is. And I've seen a lot of people red this week, and I can understand it because price has been so hard to trade. So tough, but that's what I'm looking at. That's the day. And so realizing the day, I'm down about a 0.5 R on the session. We end up seeing price come down here. We end up seeing price essentially seek a good move. I mentioned it obviously, and I end up realizing, and about a 0.4 to 0.5 R is what I'm down on the day. So not much at all. P&L hasn't been fluctuating that much, but we end up seeing price just consolidate, right? There's no real way to answer this besides either being preserved or just simply, putting risk on knowing conditions. That's really it. And that's how price is. You cannot out-trade bad price. That's what the conditions have been doing recently. And the moment that price does pick up again through New York, Lantic goes on his major win streak. People are happy again. That's just trading 101, But when markets are like this, there's nothing more I want than just to be able to make a certain amount of money or catch a certain amount of points in a trade. But when you see a 30-point range and 6 hours of data through New York, what are you supposed to do, right? Just simply preserve and move on. So that's it. That being said, hopefully you guys enjoy the recap, and I'm going to catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.